I'm so happy to be back here doing some Zoom classes. I have a degree in painting, and I'm also a professor at CU Boulder, and I also own my own wedding planning company. So arts and creativity have always been a part of my life, as well as teaching, and so it's always fun to be able to put both of those things together, especially here at the studio. And during COVID, it's just been fun to get creative and think outside the box and figure out how we can stay afloat and keep people in small businesses and support local. And we're all in this together to get through COVID, and I'm so glad you guys are able to join us and be creative tonight and think about something else that's more fun. So chat feature is open for me, so please feel free to type in any questions you have. If there's any technical issues, if you need me to repeat anything, I'm happy to do that. And also feel free to show your video if you're comfortable with that. I'd love to see what you're working on, but whatever feels good for you guys. So Nancy also tells me that you guys are regulars. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of our supplies today, as well as talk about our painting, and then we'll just jump right in. So we are going to use our 3 different size brushes today. We've got our big, medium, and small brushes. And you should have a palette of some kind for your paints, paper towel or a rag, whatever suits your fancy. I like both. And also a cup for water. And we only want to fill it up about 1 inch at the bottom. We don't want to get too much of the paint brush wet when we're rinsing our brushes today. So those are the essentials. And let's not forget, if you'd like, your glass of wine. So we'll just take a sip to get us going here. And our painting today are these almond branches, and this is a spinoff of some cherry blossoms that I used to teach when I was at the studio. This is a super fun painting, very loose, very interpretive, and you can really take this in any direction that you want. So to get us going, we're going to put all 3 of our brushes into our water and give them a good swirl. And whenever we're working on our background or a large space on our canvas, the paint goes on much better if your canvas is a little bit wet. So our first step is to just take our large brush and really dampen our canvas all over. This will allow our paint to spread a lot more smoothly, and we'll use less paint for our background than we would if our canvas was completely dry. There's no science to this. Just get a good washing of water over your entire canvas. And you can always go back to this water trick as we're adding pigment to our canvas. If it feels a little dry, or if your paint's getting a little sticky, or if there's a thicker chunk of paint that you want to smooth out, you can always dunk your brush in water and spread it out that way. All right, so that's about enough water. Again, not a science, just get it nice and damp. So for our painting today, we're going to need our 2 basic colors of blue and yellow. Those are our primaries, and we want to start with just, you know, a little silver dollar size of paint. Just remember, you can always go back and get more. It's harder to put the paint back in your tube. So I'm going to do blue. I'm going to put yellow on my plate as well. This background blue can really go any direction that you'd like. So if you want to add some red to maybe do some purple hues later, you can. And then we're going to do some white to help give us some variation in that background. And you might put a little bit extra white paint on your palette. And then we're going to use black as well for some accents. We'll put that on the opposite side of our palette. And if I'm going too quickly, just say slow down, chat box, turn on your microphone, whatever it is. So we're going to start out with these 4 colors. And again, if you want to add your red, if you've got a fancy green that you love, if you've got your supplies at home, feel free to use whatever you want. These Zoom classes, we're just trying to keep as simple as possible so anyone can participate, whether you've got a paint kit from the studio or not. So we're going to tackle this background, and I'm going to go back to that big brush, and it's nice and wet. And I'm going to do what I call double dip. I'm going to take my big brush, I'm going to go in the blue, and I'm gonna go on the edge and I'm gonna scoop up some white. So I've got two colors on my brush at the same time. And this is very, very serious, very high technique. We're just gonna scribble. So we're just gonna scribble on the background, and the less scribbling you do, the more the colors will stay separated. The more scribbling, the more the color's gonna blend together. And the goal for this is to create some interest. So maybe some darker blues in one spot, and see how I brought in some white to do some lighter blues down here. And just scribble, scribble, scribble. And if we know our primary colors, blue and yellow make green. So sometimes this background looks really beautiful with a teal, a little bit of a green hue. So you can always test your hand at mixing colors. So look, I put some yellow on top, put it in the blue, gonna make a little bit of a green tone, okay? If at any time your paint is getting a little muddy, you're not getting the clarity of color that you're wanting, just stop, put your brush in the water, give it a good rinse, and then take your paper towel, and this is always a good one. You want to test your brush on the paper towel. See how my water's still coming off blue on the paper towel? That means I need to wash my brush again. So give it another good swirl, and then do another test. It's a little bit better. So that came off a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to double dip one more time. I'm going to stand up and walk in front of you guys so I can do this other side of the canvas. I'm actually going to hold it up a little closer so you can see. We're just going to scribble, scribble, get all the way around. All right, so I'm going to put my system on mute here, and we're going to work on this background. We're going to fill the whole thing, and this is totally your preference. If you want to do the edges of your canvas, just take that background color around all four edges, and we'll get working on that. So we'll come back here in a little bit. I'll be working on mine. You guys work on yours, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. So remember, if you are looking at me doing this and you're going, man, she's moving really fast, don't forget that water trick. Dunk your brush once in the water, tap it off, and then use that water to help spread that paint. You will cover a lot more square footage a lot quicker as just adding a little droplet of water. It'll help speed up the process. So feel free to try that if that's how you're feeling. Another thing that the water is really good for is making sure that your background layer is a thin coat of paint, because we have to wait for the background to dry before we can start working on our branches and our blooms. So that is imperative to kind of speed up the process as well, keeping that background layer really thin. All right, so if you could type in the text box and let me know how you're doing, because I want to be too slow, too fast. Just say, give me a few more minutes, or we're ready to move on, and then we will adjust accordingly, and we'll move on to our drying step before we do our branches.
Loni, these are two of the smarter people that come to the studio, and they're pretty experienced painters. I bet they got this. They're just shy.
Thanks for the tip. No need to be shy. There's no wrong decisions in art. When I was teaching my kiddos, I did an after-school art program, and we didn't even give them erasers because they had to learn to work with what they thought was a mistake and get moving on.
Here's Marilyn. Hey, Marilyn.
Hi.
Hey, yeah, I'm always behind, but that's because I was still trying to get set up. So don't wait on me.
Oh, it's like a private class. We can do whatever we got to do tonight. That's for sure.
Okay, cool.
This is Adrian, and I'm ready to move on. I don't know what the chat thing is. So.
Oh, okay. No worries. Thanks, Adrian.
Okay.
Texture in the background. That's so pretty.
Oh, thanks. I did that. I painted that one.
Actually, I meant the texture in the painting you just did. Like
this one?
Yeah, the texture is just really beautiful. I always say friends don't let friends overblend.
Yes, that's a good one. It is a thin line. It's a slippery slope to kind of lose some of those different hues and, you know, dark tones and light tones and everything in between. If you're at a spot where you're kind of done with the background, this is the technical drying process. So feel free to fling your painting around to help dry it.
So, Loni, what do you teach at CU Boulder?
Yeah, so I've been teaching at Metro State and CU Boulder the last several semesters. At Metro State, I teach event planning and special event production in the hospitality college. And at CU Boulder, I was brought on in the marketing and communication department to do their senior level strategic communications campaign. And I was able to bring in 2 local businesses, and they actually worked on a project to solve a real life problem for this company. So with my wedding and events background, I brought in a catering company, and then a friend of mine works at Crocs, and he's the artistic director for Crocs. And so that was a fun project for them. They kind of got this big national corporate brand to do a problem for, and then a smaller, more local business. So they had to create a marketing plan, which is like a 50 to 60 page paper. They had to do 2. And all the seniors in this department have to take this course to graduate. And they're still waiting to give us our teaching assignments for the fall. So I'm waiting anxiously to know what I'm teaching and hopefully have enough time to prepare and present a good course, because 2 weeks is not a long enough time to put everything together.
Nice. Both of my youngest kids, one went to CU Boulder, one went to UCCS, and both of them did projects that were for a business their senior year.
Yeah.
And both of them were able to get their next job, their first job out of college because of that that project. I mean,
that's awesome.
huge.
Yeah, a lot of the seniors were saying that they thought that the quality of the project that they got to work on was definitely a good addition to their portfolio. So that's always nice to hear, to, you know, give those seniors a leg up on their next job or whatever they're looking for. And, you know, unfortunately, they didn't get graduation this year, and a lot of companies aren't hiring right now, especially new graduates. So it's been an interesting summer for them, as I'm sure everyone is experiencing in some way right now.
We'll never forget this year.
That is a fact.
And thank goodness for painting.
That's right. So as you're done with the background, if you take like a sideways glance at it, if it's still shiny, that means it's still wet. Mine's still got a little bit of time here, so I'm gonna hopefully help this process along so we can work on those branches. Have either of you painted this one before? Assuming not, because you're taking the class.
No.
No, I haven't.
Good. It's a fun one. I'm excited. Haven't done the cherry blossoms in a while, so it's nice to be back at this one.
And I have a feeling that Marilyn and Adrian have heard this plenty of times before, but I do need to say it because I'm obligated to say it because it's part of our spiel, and also it's going to be on YouTube. But I just wanted to remind you that our teachers are working in June for tips. They have graciously donated their time to help us out and to keep us all painting and sane during this crazy summer. And so Loni is on Venmo, and it's at Loni, Loni, and then hyphen Lampe. If you'd like to show her some love on Venmo, I know she'd appreciate it very much. And that will be on the YouTube station as well. We'll put that up tomorrow when I post the YouTube. And then we have one more free class for customers after today, and that's tomorrow. And I actually kind of forgot what we're going to be painting tomorrow. I will find out in just a second and get back to you. But so just one more free class. So if you want to tell your friends to join you tomorrow, let's. We already have 7 or 8 people signed up, and let's make it a big party. And then we'll go into July, and we will continue to have Zoom classes, and we're going to have in-studio classes too, with social distancing and mask wearing and every safety precaution we can think of, we're going to be doing so that our customers and our staff are safe and well, and we're going to have a good time. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here tonight.
All right, do we need a few more minutes for drying time? How are we doing?
Good. Good.
Okay, great. So let's just take a closer look at our example. So you guys have that still shot on Nancy's screen, and then I have this printout up here as well. What are some things you notice about the branches in this example?
I don't know if you can hear me, but one looks like a Y.
Yep, Ys, yep, that's it. What else?
Yeah. Well, they're thin.
Say that one more time.
Thin
Oh.
branches.
And are they perfectly straight lines?
No.
No, they're wiggly, they're a little bit asymmetrical, they definitely don't all go straight up and down, and they all have some sort of small branching off. And your brain processes things better in odd numbers, and so look, we've got 3 main branches that we're working with that then turn into this beautiful cascade of smaller branches and then blooms that we'll add at the very end. So you can really situate these big branches wherever you would like. They can come from the corner, they can spread out across the bottom. You can even take a look at how your background has turned out and see if you want to maybe spin it, and maybe you like having the lighter colors in the bottom and darkers up top. So there's really no wrong way to slice this. So thinking about those branches that we're working in odd numbers, we're going to think about the letter Y, and that they're really wiggly and they go in all sorts of different directions. Now, we need a darker color like brown for the branches, and so we are going to get I'm going to get another plate so I can mix and you can see. If you don't have a brown, lucky for you, brown is made by all three primary colors mixed together. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So if you need another plate, go for it. If you've got plenty of room on your first one, cool. So I'm going to do yellow. Blue. This is going to make a lot of paint, so you don't need a ton of each color as you prepare this palette. And a red. Good. So my recommendation is to take the small or medium brush for your mixing, because then you won't waste too much pigment in the mixing of your brown, and you'll be able to kind of control which color you need more of. So all I'm going to do is basically pull a little bit of each color to the side and then mix it up. Okay, and I'm going to get this nice and mixed so you can kind of see the color I made, and then we can discuss what direction we need to go in. All right, so this first brown that I'm working on, it's a very blue, greeny brown. So I think I need a little bit more red to darken that up. So I'm just going to put some more red into my pile and mix, mix, mix. And the good thing about these branches is they have highlights and lowlights. So once we put the foundation of our branches on the canvas, we're going to come back with black as our low light and white as the highlight to create some interest in our branches. So this isn't going to be the final pass. Okay, so this isn't exact, but let's see about this one now. Still a little blue, but we kind of can see where that brown is starting to form, right? It's a little bit dark. So when you're happy with your mixed brown, we're going to start sketching in our branches. So because these branches are really wiggly and loose, we're not going to hold our brush tight like a pencil or a pen. We're going to slide our hand back and hold the brush with 2 fingers, 3 fingers, and be very loose with our handle on the brush. So I'm going to try to create, as best I can, the same thing, but you guys are welcome to be adventurous with your branches and where you place them. So I'm going to start with this one that's in my bottom right hand side of my canvas, okay? The bottom of these branches are a little bit thicker, so I'm going to start with a little bit of a wider brush stroke down here. And then this one's going up and around, and it's kind of squirrely. So again, loose grip on my brush. I'm going to wiggle, wiggle, spinning the brush. Going to come up, and then it's going to come down. So try to do one brush stroke without picking up your brush, because that's going to help you keep the continuity of your branch. So that's not perfect, right? I'm going to come back. I'm going to make this a little bit thicker. And then I need to create my Y. So I need to figure out where I want my Y shape to start. So usually those happen towards the end of your branch. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit darker so you can see. And then as you work your way and start building your branch, you can start thickening up the stem. Okay, so we're gonna leave that one there just like that because who said it? Was it Kate Spade or Coco Chanel? She's like, you gotta take one accessory off before you leave the house, right? So that kind of goes into play with adding all your accent branches or your blooms. So it's easier to add more. It's more difficult to take away your branches. So I'm just mixing up a little bit more brown paint here so I can continue with my 3 branches. So then the next one, these two kind of split the middle here. So I'm going to come towards my middle. And I have all this space I need to fill up. So my next branch is going to come up and over towards this right corner, mirrored image. Don't get confused, my right, your left. So I'm going to start here in the middle. Again, a little bit thicker of a base. Loose grip on my brush. Going to wiggle, wiggle. Come all the way up this way. And then what do we say? We got to end in the corner. Get a little bit more paint. Going to thicken this branch up. And then I'm going to create a natural Y. Okay? Come down to that base a little bit more. You know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling another Y here. And that's totally fine. So there's branch number 2. Cool. So now we've got this corner that needs a little bit of love. So my 3rd branch, again, I'm going to mix up a little bit more brown, a little bit at a time. I'm going to use this 3rd branch to venture out over that way. So I'm going to split center like we talked about with those middle 2. I'm going to wiggle, going to crisscross my branches. Maybe this one goes that direction. And then maybe this one goes up there. The more asymmetrical and the weirder it is, the more natural these branches are going to look. So don't get stuck in thinking they have to be straight lines. They have to go from point A to point B. They can really be fairly loose. So as you're working on these, this was kind of the skeleton. So I'm going to come back and thicken some of these areas up because these need to be a little bit beefier branches. So then the Ys have an opportunity to thin out and look like a baby branch. So now maybe we're going to come back and create another branch going this way. Right, we got to fill in some of this space. And maybe our first one needs a little bit more love towards the middle. This feels a little empty up here, so I think I might add another branch coming that direction. And when you're creating your Ys, it's smart to not have your Y end in an equal distance. So look, these are a little bit too symmetry. So I'm going to make that a little longer so it looks a little different from its neighbor to the left. Now, the example on your screen and the one we have here are very branchy. So this is totally up to you. How branchy do you want your almond tree to be? If you want it to be a little more simple, then maybe we stop here. If you want it to be a little bit more in depth, maybe we can think about some other Ys that we can create, maybe filling in some space on your canvas that is a little bit empty. Do remember, we're adding a bunch of blooms, large and small. So it's going to kind of help fill in some of these spaces that are a little bit empty. But you have to think about your branches as the foundation of your blooms. So if you feel like there's a spot that's a little bit too sparse, fill it in with a little branch or a Y. Don't forget your light grip on your paintbrush. And again, if your brush gets a little bit too gloppy, that's a lot of paint on there. If it's not coming off the color that you'd like, always you can stop, wash your brush, check it on your paper towel, give it a nice squeeze, and then it's always nice to roll. If it's a round brush, roll the brush as you are drying it, and then it kind of keeps those point bristles together so you can continue having a nice thin line. And about at this point of the branches, if I were in the studio, I would ask everyone to stand up and walk away from their painting. You get a much better global view of your painting when you step away from it. It looks very different when you're up close and personal. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to walk behind this camera to take a look at my branches and also compare it with my example here to see if I have missed a spot or if I need to add any more small branches. So I'll be right back. You guys try it out too. Okay, so what I found was this side looks very same. Little straight line. It's a nice curved line. Not surprised because that was the opposite side of the canvas I was painting on. So I'm going to stand on this side now and get some more of my brown. I'm going to try to make this a little bit more weird. Just make it a little bit more asymmetrical. Maybe make one longer. And guess what? It's totally fine if you take a branch off the canvas. That really opens up the scope of your design and it really carries the eye across your entire canvas when something goes off the edge. So if you've got one that's already really close to the top or the edge of your canvas, sometimes it's nice to just let it pop right off the edge. All right, did you guys walk away from your canvas to take a look? What did you find?
Yeah.
Did you notice that you needed to add some more branches or you were a little heavier on left or right side of the canvas?
Yes, yeah.
Good. It's definitely helpful to walk away, get a nice wide view, and even looking at it reverse in my camera here, I want to make this a little thicker. This one looks a little weak for it to be the base of my branch. So easy fix. Just get some more of that brown. Gonna thicken that base up and kind of take it up the branch there. Even just a little extra line, I feel like that gives it a little bit more foundation there at the bottom of the canvas. All right, so I'm going to go on mute. I'm going to give you guys an extra minute. I'm going to hold this up close, and then we will talk about the blues next. right, any questions about branches? How are we feeling about those?
Good.
Good. Okay, so let's also take a look now at our blooms. So we talked about what we noticed about branches. What do we notice about our blooms? Are they all the same size?
No, big ones and little ones.
Big and little, and then look at these little babies, right?
Yes.
You've got some singletons and all kind of small, medium, large with the yellow centers. And then there's these clusters of blooms along the skinny little babyest last branches all around the canvas. So hopefully your white hasn't been completely destroyed by the blue when you worked on the backdrop. So I'm going to continue using this little white blob of paint that I have here. And I'm going to change to my medium brush. It's nice to kind of give it a good swirl and a dab off because sometimes the brushes will pick up the blue or the brown that you were working with earlier. And since we're working with white now, we want to have a really clean brush. So do your paper towel check and be sure that that's a really clean brush. Okay, so just like we said earlier, your brain is happier in odd numbers. So we're going to go with the big blooms first. My recommendation is to start with 3 or 5 big blooms and space them all over your canvas. Be sure that your blooms are attached to the branch. We have to be anatomically correct here. So a bloom isn't going to be floating off here in the middle of your background. It's going to be closer to, if not on, a branch. So I got my medium-sized flat brush. And I'm going to put the tip of my bristle into the white. Not the whole thing, just the very ends of my bristles. And these are kind of a sloppy star. So we're going to kind of go up, down, and around and scribble and be done. This is a very good case of less is more. So we're going to pick a spot. We're going to do a sloppy star and leave it. The more you mess with it, the more it will lose that sloppy star shape and become more rounded and less petal-like. So don't do too much. So I think I'm going to put my first bloom about here. So here we go, sloppy star. And I'm going to be done. That's it. We can always come back and touch up, but do not overdo those brushes for those petals. So that's one. That's going to be considered my big shape. I'm going to move along here and maybe let's do one here. And let's do one down below, so maybe over here. Be aware, some of your branches might be still wet. So if you notice that you picked up a little bit of brown on your brush, stop and wash, rinse it off, come back for some fresh white paint. So I've got 3 big ones. I think I need 2 more. I think I still need a few more big ones to help fill up the space. Probably one up here. And probably another one over here somewhere. So we're going to go back to that white paint. We're going to get ourselves 2 more big white blooms. Okay, there's one. Let's see down here. Cool. So I'm actually going to wash because I had a little bit of brown come through, so I'm going to get a nice clean brush. So now we're going to move on to that small medium size, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like 13 or 15 small blooms. So again, make sure that they are attached to a branch. You can put them near your big ones. You can spread them out, but kind of have at it. Maybe start with 7 and see what you think. But the example here has about 11. Again, no science to this. It's really depending on how you ended up designing your branches and how you feel like you need to fill up your space. So I'm going to walk over to the other side here. And I'm going to start putting in my small blooms. Okay, that's 11 already, just like that. That's 11. I think that seems pretty bare, so I think I'm going to continue. I'm going to do a couple more. And your medium and small can vary in size. They don't have to be exactly the same. And actually, it's better if they are a little bit different in size, each one of them. So what I'm doing right now is going back with a little bit more white paint and making the blooms more opaque. So that means they are not see-through, they're a little bit more solid. And so I don't see the background blue coming through. You just go over what you've already done with some more paint. Okay, so I'm going to do my walk away trick again. I'm going to go take a look at this from behind the camera and see if I need to add any more small or medium flowers. Okay, I realized I need 2 more. Something felt missing over here and something felt missing over there. All right, how are we doing on that timing, you guys? How are we feeling?
Good.
Good. Okay, so we're gonna just move right into the yellow centers because whenever I do these types of flowers, I like having the yellow mix with the white paint while it's still a little bit wet. So similar technique here. We're not gonna think too hard about it. We're gonna put the paint just on the end of the brush and we're gonna kind of do a dab and a spin with your brush to get the middle of the flower where the pollen is. And again, this should take 10 seconds to hit everything, so we're not thinking too hard about it. So I'm going to just pull this a little bit closer so you can see. We're just going to go spin, spin, spin. Get a little bit more paint. Spin, spin, spin. You get it. No rhyme or reason, but don't think too hard about your middles. Ta-da! So when you're done with the yellow, wash that brush. We're going to use it again for our lowlights and highlights on our branches. Now's a great time for a liquid break if you need. Go Buffs. All right, you guys ready for highlights and lowlights on branches, or do we need a few more minutes on our flowers?
Ready?
All right, cool. So let's go to our original palette that we put our white and black on. Again, hopefully you should have some fresh white and untouched black, but if you need to, give yourself some more paint. So I'm going to do low lights first. That's going to be the black. And when we think about doing low lights and undertones on branches, we want to think about where the light might be coming from. So if you come back this way, see, this is a lighter part of my background. So I want to pretend like the sun is coming this direction. So when I do my highlights, I'm going to try to keep the highlights on these top ends, sides of the branches, and then the low lights are going to be on the opposite side, creating the shadow of the branch. Adding these low lights and highlights will also create a little bit more of a knobby, a windy, little bit of an ebb and flow of the branch like we were able to draw with our brush. These two highlights, low lights will add to that factor. So we're going to go with black first. And again, very, very little bit of paint on your medium flat brush. And I want to keep it nice and thin. So I don't want to have too big of a brush. I want to keep the brush really nice and narrow. And then I like to use my pinky as a balance on the canvas. So then I can draw along the edge and keep it fairly contained. Okay? So again, my highlight's coming this way, so my shadow's going to be underneath. These lines can definitely be larger than your branch. They do not have to be inside the lines, and they do not have to lengthen the entire way of your branch. It can just be a little section in the middle that gets a low light. So I want every branch to get a little bit of attention with a shadow, okay, whatever that means, but be sure you keep it wiggly and loose. Okay, nothing too serious, nothing too straight. And you don't have to keep it uniform on every branch, okay? Just put a little bit of highlight, low light throughout the entire piece. Okay, so again, less is more. We can always come back with more black low light, but I'm going to brush wash. And since we're moving into white now, we want to make sure that that brush comes off very clean when you are getting all that black off. All right, so sometimes when I finish washing my brush, I like to pinch the bristles together just slightly, so then you get a nice thin line here at the end of the brush. So rinse, rinse, give it a little bit of a pinch, and then we're going to do the same thing but with white, and that's going to go on the highlight side of our branch. So if you've got a highlight coming across, right, we want to think about how sun does cascade across branches and things. So we're going to do a little sun kiss on these branches, okay? Just a little here and there. When you layer a highlight and a low light together, very close to one another, either on top or layered, it immediately creates depth. And so it's a really easy trick if you're like, this feels flat. Doing a low light right next to a highlight is an easy, quick way to start pulling out depth in something that you're painting. Now, don't forget, we still have the very, very tiny baby blooms, and we're leaving those for last because they're kind of like the lipstick, right? They're the finishing touch on the painting, and you don't want to pick, you want to do too much, too little, but you want to be able to have a full view of your painting. Okay. I'm going to wash that. And third time, I'm going to go take a look at my branches and make sure that my highlights and lowlights are falling where I want them. And there's always the opportunity to come back with some more brown paint and add in branch color again. How are the lowlights and highlights doing?
That black kills me.
I know. It's so tough.
I love the white, but the black.
It's a good one. I mean, it's definitely the tipping point color on a lot of paintings. Someone I taught with when I was at the studio, her name's Tony. She would floor me because the first color she would use when she started a painting was black. Like, that is so brave because it's really hard to like come back from that dark of a pigment. So yeah, black is tough, but it definitely adds a ton to the contrast and the contour in your work. And I know typically in the studio we have music playing and it's a good atmosphere and great vibe, but because these are going on YouTube, we can't play music. So since you guys are on mute and enjoying this time at your home, feel free to put on whatever music moves you and gets you excited to paint and be creative. So I encourage music. I love listening to music when I paint. You know, I wish YouTube felt differently. Okay, are we ready for the last bloom on here, or we need a few more minutes?
I'm ready.
Okay, so the last baby blooms, I think there's a few fun ways to do this one. You can use, we will be using the small brush, the very small brush. And so you can use the tip of your round brush, right, this little point here. But sometimes it's also fun to paint with the back end of your brush. So we'll do both. And what were the things that we noticed about the smallest blooms? They are clumped and they follow the very last baby branch on all of these larger ones. So those are two things we got to keep in mind as we do our small blooms. And they're kind of paired side by side with another bloom. So let's just get to it. I will do both sides of the brush, and then you can see how they look, and then you can decide which way you'd like to do yours. Okay, so I'm going to start with my round brush. And again, just paint on the very, very end. We don't need to glob it on. I'm going to work on this one right here, okay? So on either side of this branch, I'm going to do little dots. Really close together. And follow it off the branch. And then you can come back in and fill it in. And look, you can even kind of angle that branch up with your blooms. So this is with the paintbrush, bristle side. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to use the back end of the brush now. You got paint on the back end of your brush. And I'm going to do this branch right here. This is a lighter touch, but it creates a little bit more of a perfect round shape as you create your baby blooms. And as the paint comes off the end of the brush, the shape that's made is inherently going to be smaller. So it does kind of give you a easy way to be asymmetrical and create a little bit of visual interest. All right, so this one again, this branch up here is done with the brush. And this one down here is done with the back end of the brush. So taking a look at all of your baby branches, spread the wealth out with those little blooms. Not every little branch needs these blossoms. As you can see in your example, there's definitely some naked branches, if you will, or untouched branches. So feel free to do as you wish. I am going to do mine with the bristles today. Remember to take the blooms off the end of the branch that you ended up painting, so it creates a little bit more of a natural cascade. So I'm also creating some imaginary little baby branches in here. If you start feeling like you need to fill in some gaps, or you've got some dead space that you wanted to kind of, you wish you maybe did a branch, but it's you know, we're beyond that, don't hesitate to pretend and put in those little baby blooms anyway, even if there's not a little branch under there for them to be on. Just keep that brush stroke really light. And make sure that it tapers to thin and has a nice natural curve as it goes to the end. All right, and just like all the other steps before this with flowers, it's very easy to do too much of the baby blooms. So stop while you're ahead, walk away, take a look at composition, see if it feels balanced to you or if there's anywhere that needs a little bit extra attention, and you can fill those in. Don't forget, if you use the back end of your brush, to clean that up. Because I have then put the brush in my mouth, then you have paint in your mouth. So the examples on the screen and in the paper form here definitely are a little bit more branch heavy, but with this being an online class, I wanted to kind of keep the pace up a little bit more. This is a little bit simpler version, but hopefully you at home have been able to create the branches that you would like and the design that you're looking for, and you're happy with the composition. So as far as the instruction goes, that's basically everything. So I encourage you to walk away, take a look at your canvas and see if you need maybe a few more of these big ones, or you want some more smaller ones, or you know what, take it all the way back and add in some more branches. There's no harm in that either. So now you have all of the tools and you can go back and fill in if you need, or just step back and admire your work. Still be here for questions, comments. I'd love to see your work, but if you don't want to share, that's okay. Let me know if you need anything, and we'll be here for a little bit longer.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope you guys had a nice time tonight and that you'll look forward to the July calendar. I will be every Monday, Wednesday in the month of July. So I'll be teaching all of those online classes, and hope to see you guys again. And hopefully our classes will fill up and more folks will come and paint with us.
You said Monday and Wednesday, right?
Yes, yeah, Monday, Wednesday online. And as Nancy was saying at the beginning, classes are now starting at 6 for these online courses. And then you also have the opportunity to go into the studio for regular classes as well.
Thank you. Learned a lot.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Yay.
Really.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I was in the back of the studio. Sounds like you just finished up.
I'm going to sign off. So thank you again.
Well, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you soon, okay?
Okay, thanks, Lori.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.